We've got church and Inside Out. I want to take a few minutes and give you an update on some of the things that have been going on here to help address the homeless crisis in Springfield. As many of you know, we began talking about this a couple of weeks ago when it come to our attention that there were potentially hundreds of folks here on the streets in Springfield, Ohio, without proper shelter, without a warm place to sleep or food that they could eat. And as we researched this a little bit, we found that the homeless shelters here in Springfield have actually been closed for months. They've been closed. Some people were put in hotel rooms as an interim measure, but not nearly the total number of folks that were in need. So in response to that, Inside Out offered to utilize our community center and the resources that we have, the food and cooking resources that we have. The people who have the funding for this weren't interested in partnering with us to do that. We decided that the need was so great and so important, there were people literally freezing on the streets and children being uncared for, that we believed we should do something on our own. And so we appealed to many of you. Well, since then, folks have come forward with cash contributions, with contributions of blankets and pillows and laundry detergent and hygiene products. It's really been just amazing. Some folks have come forward to volunteer in the center to provide oversight and care. We're working with the PATH Integrated Health Care to provide mental health services and screening and case management for folks. So we're off to a pretty good start and doing some good things thanks to the help from folks like you. So I wanted to give you that update and express appreciation to the dozens of people that have stepped up, stepped forward and made personal sacrifices and corporate sacrifices to help with this. In the meantime, I also want to share with you some of the problems I think that exist with the way our local authorities and other agencies are addressing the problem. I think that there are some shortfalls and some short-sightedness in that, and I want to bring that to your attention. And here locally, all of the government, all of the public funding for homelessness has been directed to a one-size-fits-all method of putting people in hotels and motels as the sole solution. And I want to talk to you about that and about some of the flaws that I see in that program tonight. So first, this has been promoted as being the only method of addressing homelessness that the government will fund, that state and federal funds can be allocated to. And I want to tell you that is not true. That is simply a false statement. If anyone tells you that it's not, then they're either misinformed or they're deliberately misinforming you. There are millions of dollars in state and federal money being directed right now to homeless shelters all across the state to expand and assist with existing traditional methods of congregate group type sheltering that's happening everywhere else. So that's been happening. In fact, as far as I can tell, no other homeless shelters in the state of Ohio have closed as a result of COVID except the ones here in Springfield, Ohio, operated by IHN. Not even one. I've checked with homeless shelters in Cincinnati and Dayton and Toledo and Cleveland. Even Little Urbana is still open. I'm not aware of a single one that's closed. If someone watching this can find one, please let me know so that I can make a correction on this statement. But I've sure searched as best I know how to find. So homeless shelters are open. Congregate type group shelters are open all across the state. Millions of dollars are being spent funding them. Springfield, Ohio is the only one that has actually closed their shelters, and this was not the result of any government order. We've been told numerous times the exact words that city officials have used is that all congregate type shelters are ordered closed, and that is not true. It would be ludicrous to believe that every other homeless shelter in the state of Ohio was being operated by criminals who have no regard for the law, and only Springfield was operated by law-abiding folks. That's just not true. So there's no reason for these shelters to be closed. And A problem I have is that other people who would have stepped in to fill that gap when the local shelters closed have been hindered from doing so, have been discouraged from doing so by this talk about it being illegal or outside the COVID rules or what have you. The only reason I can find for the local shelters being closed is because the local staff was afraid of catching COVID themselves. That's the only reason I can find, and I understand that fear. I don't fault people that have legitimate fears. You know, a lot of people are afraid of running into a burning building, but they shouldn't become firemen, and they shouldn't stop the firemen from doing their job. So, in order to maintain the position, though, the status or the designation of being the designated agency to deal with homelessness, these agencies have had to devise another method of dealing with the homeless crisis outside of the shelters. And that's where the problem comes in. The only no-touch method that they can find, where everybody keeps their job, stays home in their pajamas, and still keeps their designation, is this hotel-motel option. I know I'm rambling a little here, but it's possible to run shelters without spreading COVID. The CDC has issued guidelines. HUD has issued guidelines on COVID safe practices for operating homeless shelters. And these guidelines specifically ask shelters not to close. They believe that closing a homeless shelter actually increases the risk of spreading COVID through the community, since many of the population may not be able to obtain masks or hand sanitizer or other hygiene products, and may not be able to practice the type of hygiene that would help keep from spreading the disease. So it's actually helpful to everyone if we keep these congregate type shelters open. So we're being told, though, that this method, this hotel motel method, is the only method that the state will fund. As I said, that's not true. Challenge anyone to prove it. We're also being told that this is the preferred method, that this hotel motel method is the preferred method that everyone else is using in the country to address the homeless need. Well, it is a method that's being tried and experimented with. It's far from the preferred method. It's far from having replaced traditional type services anywhere in the country, at least of all here. So that's simply just not true. We're being told that the hotel motel method is being utilized because it provides human dignity to folks, and that somehow being in a congregate type shelter robs people of their human dignity. I'll let you hear from a friend of mine who spent some time in a homeless shelter at the Dream Center in LA as a single father, and he'll tell you that he found tremendous human dignity there.
Hello, my name is Shannon White. Just want to give you some insight on the Dream Center, what brought me out to the Dream Center. The biggest reason why is just life controlling issues. Where I actually came to LA, I lived on Skid Row for roughly about a year or so, but I started volunteering at the Dream Center, from going in and out, eventually living there, becoming staff, and really learning the tools and what it means to minister, but not just minister, but what it means to invest in the community. One of the biggest things that the Dream Center played a huge role in my life is when I got full custody of my son, where they had a family floor, which my son and I lived there, and they kind of taught me just how to be a dad again. It wasn't really that I didn't have life skills or knew how to do anything, more than just not knowing how to be a father, when to say no, when to discipline. All that kind of stuff was very new to me, and I learned a lot of it at the Dream Center. Not only that, just my work ethic, a lot of things, um, where it's selfless. And that's what I can think of. When I was on the family floor, I lived there completely free. Food, clothes, anything that I needed was completely free. And so not only did I get a lot of skills, but everything was paid for, including my room and board. Along with being staff out there, I learned a lot of things about the ministry, a lot of things about the heart of God, a lot of things about what are needs versus wants, things that somebody really needs versus something that somebody really wants. To have the heart of God is to fill needs, not necessarily wants all the time. And I know that the community, especially in Springfield, and I know it was needed here in LA, is some kind of a community center, some kind of place that families can go to receive the care, the medical provision that they might need. And I'm sure that Inside Out is an amazing place, as I worked there and I loved working there, especially with the kids. I lived out there and I know what it's like. It's not a bad place, and the people aren't bad. They just need somebody to be there to just love them. Uh, it all takes time, and change doesn't happen overnight. But I do know that um, 10 years later, after being at the Dream Center, I am where I'm at today, living in California. I have my own place. My son's still living with me. He's about to graduate, all because of a community place called the Dream Center that was there. Just one of the many tools that are in the communities out there that people need. People are in desperate need of this for shelter, but not just that, for food, for skills, so they can move on in life. So these kind of facilities are amazing, and I am a product of one of them 100%.
Issues in their life. I spoke to a man earlier today, a good man who's helping us with some of these things. But he told me at one time he was a crack addicted, negligent father who would love to have had a hotel room to dump his kids in because he neglected his kids when he was in that addiction. And where he found dignity was when people held him accountable and provided oversight and helped him get his life in order. So, the congregate type shelters, traditional shelters, if they're operated correctly, in no way rob people of human dignity. In fact, they provide human dignity. I'll talk about that a little more as we go. There's a lot of news articles that have been written about a program that they're utilizing in Seattle, Washington. It's being touted as a model just like ours, just like what we're doing here. You may have seen some links to those articles and then heard that statement. As I talk here in a minute, I'll show you how what they're doing there is not at all like what we're doing here. It does not resemble the program that's happening here. So what's actually happening in Springfield and what's wrong with it? Well, the only method of dealing with homelessness in Springfield, at least the only public method, the only method utilizing any of the millions and millions of dollars in state and federal funds that have been poured this way, is the method of putting people in hotel and motel rooms. Now, that might be okay for some people. I imagine people that have never dealt with the homeless population or the impoverished population probably have a picture in their head of it being sort of like a Lifetime movie event where a single mom is down on her luck. They're out of work or and somebody puts them up in a hotel and to get back on their feet, and they spend all this quality family time together, maybe have some meals together in the room and build on the hope that they have for their future, and what a warm and touching story that could be. And that may be happening in some isolated instances, but that is not what is happening in many of these cases. In many of these cases, people who have life-controlling issues, who have drug addictions, alcohol addictions, behavioral disorders, are taking their kids and dumping them in these rooms and leaving for days at a time, for whole weekends. Teenagers and pre-teenagers are being left in these rooms for allowed to throw teenage parties and such, where they're often exposed to drugs, alcohol, sexual things, and all manner of corruption without any adult supervision at all. We have firsthand knowledge that these type of things have been going on for months now here in the city as a direct result of this program. I know of a 12-year-old boy who slept in the hallway at the Red Roof Inn because his mother was out of town partying somewhere and he couldn't find her and didn't know where she was. Another boy called in tears because he needed a ride back to the hotel. His mom was partying in Columbus, I think he said, or somewhere. He didn't know where. We know of kids that have been left for the weekends. We know of parties that have been happening. Some of these rooms are being used just as dump zones for kids. Many of the people don't have a problem finding a place to sleep as long as they don't have their kids along with them. Now, I know this isn't all of the people, folks, but if it's some of the people or most of the people, we shouldn't be spending millions of dollars of government funds on this, and we shouldn't be robbing the people of the dignity, the kids of the dignity of the accountability that could be provided if we were using our traditional type services. So, and not only that, some of these rooms are being used for party zones and brothels even. Yes, folks. And again, another problem with these hotel rooms is the only possible solution is many people are taking advantage of these rooms who would not be counted in the homeless population if these rooms were not available. I have firsthand knowledge of people. One woman comes to mind who hasn't had a place of her own in years. And she would not go to a homeless center. She has places to stay. She always has a place to stay. She stays with family. She has kids that stay with different family members. And she kind of does her thing. She's not really interested at this point in her life of getting things in order. But as soon as these hotel rooms became available, she took one. And she sent her kids there for days at a time while she went even to other cities. We're aware of these things. We're aware of several, just a number of people who would not be part of the homeless population, would not be in a shelter, but when offered the possibility of a free hotel room, they jump at the idea. So we're told that the homeless population in Springfield, Ohio has increased by 350%. Folks, that number has reached that level as a direct result of the mismanagement of the funds, of the mismanagement of the program. I'm not aware of another city in the state of Ohio or even in the nation where the homeless population has increased by 350%. I'm not even aware of it. But dozens of people, maybe who knows how many people who would not be part of the homeless population are rushing forward to take advantage of this. Some people are just finding it a convenient option to paying rent. Some people are finding it a convenient option to the other places that they had to stay. And by scooping up all these hotel rooms, they're leaving people who really are in need. People who really are sleeping on the sidewalk, they're leaving them without any resources available. So the mismanagement of this program, the program happening without accountability, is actually increasing. Most of the other cities that I've researched have increases in homeless population in the range of 50, 60%, maybe even as high as 100%, but I'm not aware of another city anywhere that's experienced a 350% increase in the homeless population as a result of COVID. And again, if someone can find a statistic that disproves that, please let me know. I am certainly open to being corrected. And another story I want to share with you is the story of Ryden Palomino. Ryden was a 10-month-old baby boy back in May whose mother was placed, Bianca, was placed in one of these hotel rooms without any oversight or accountability. And she took her 10-month-old baby and put him in a car seat and strapped him in and left him in the hotel room. Left him tied up in this car seat so that she could go evidently do her thing. And hours later, Ryden strangled to death in the straps in that car seat, unattended, and died. Now, Ryden died as a direct result of this program, of this one-size-fits-all method. If Ryden had been in a community-type congregate shelter with his mother where there was oversight, he probably wouldn't have died. That probably wouldn't have happened. She wouldn't have been able to come in there and leave her child unattended. There's accountability in places like that. It's a shame. It's a shame that that's happened. It's a shame that Ryden's mother is now facing charges for manslaughter. And I doubt if the people who made the decision to put her in that room even went to his funeral. I doubt if anyone even sent flowers. In fact, I wonder if Ryden even had a funeral. Now let's compare this for a minute to what's happening in Seattle, because I keep hearing a lot about what they're doing in Seattle, and there have been a lot of stories written, a lot of publicity about how they're using this program just like ours in Seattle, Washington, and it's having such wonderful results. Well, they are having good results with a program that places people in hotels and motels, homeless folks there in Seattle. But here's some differences. I was told today that we have 190 some people in hotel rooms here in Clark County, here in Springfield, Ohio. Homeless people, almost 200 people are in are of the homeless population are in these hotels, and there's still somewhere around 100 left on the street that we haven't cared for. We're spending millions of dollars, probably $20,000 a day. I don't know the exact number, but we are spending millions of dollars on this as our one-size-fits-all. It's a very, very expensive solution, and when you use it as the only solution, it robs every other potential solution of resources that could be used to help the problem. In comparison, oh, and by the way, I heard that a recent request, I heard that we were sending to the state, we were requesting $10 million to continue this program over the next year. $10 million to continue putting people in hotels and motels of our homeless population. 200 people in the centers, or in these hotels right now here in Springfield. In Seattle, Washington, the program that I read about, the program that they have there, proposed to put 200 people in these rooms. A total of 200 people. That's the same number that we have in Springfield. But in Springfield, that represents 2/3 of our entire population of homeless folks, of 300 people, as a one-size-fits-all method. In Seattle, Washington, there are 11,500 homeless people right now, according to their estimates. And so this 200 people in Seattle represents only a very, very small percentage of the total population. A very small percentage for whom this is a suitable, desirable, appropriate solution. The article I read said that in one place they screened 78 homeless people for the program, and only 40 were chosen to be put in these rooms. They allocated $4 million, far less than our $10 million. They allocated $4 million for the homeless program, and or for the hotel program in Seattle, but actually only spent about $1.5 million. And by far the biggest difference between what they're doing there and what they're doing here is the staffing. According to the article that I read, whenever they place homeless folks in these hotel rooms, they also provide 24/7 staff. The agency actually provides staff at these hotels 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to provide oversight and accountability, to make sure that the children are being protected and the program's not being abused, and to provide services and mental health services, human resource services to the folks to provide for their needs. So it's a much different program than what we're doing here, where we just give keys to the people and they do their thing. These are some of the reasons why I've got a problem. And I think we all should have a problem with the way the problem is being addressed here in Springfield. There is no reason the local shelters should have closed. And having chosen to close, there's no reason that these millions of dollars in state and federal funds that are being entrusted to our local authorities here shouldn't be directed to other agencies who are willing to step forward and do that. And I'm not trying to, this is not a play to get funding for Inside Out. When I came forward with some of these ideas, they were dismissed out of hand. We were told point blank that it was illegal to do congregate sheltering. We had to work to debunk that, to disprove those stories. And then we were told there's absolutely no funding going to be allocated, and that's fine. That's fine, because we're motivated by the need. My wife and I work as volunteers here, and so we just appeal to the community directly to volunteer. We have the building available. We have the food available. Honestly, we could run our entire program for what they're allocating in quarters. One of the recent things I heard about the most recent budget is it allocates $250,000 for quarters to give to the homeless people to do their laundry with, since they can't do the laundry at the centers anymore, being closed. Now, folks, for $250,000, I could buy commercial washers and dryers, several sets, and I could hire several of these homeless folks and give them full-time jobs so they wouldn't have to be homeless anymore, doing nothing but the laundry, and we could wash, dry, and fold and press every single item of clothing for the entire population and have some money left over. But what's happening with these quarters, many of these quarters are being given to people who have life-controlling issues, and their kids are still running around in dirty clothes while the drug man stays in business. If we can't do better than that, if we don't have the ability to provide more oversight of the public resources than that, then the people providing the oversight should not be the people providing the oversight. Now, I'll go as far as saying that, folks. Now, saying that has caused me to be excluded from the circles that talk about this, so I'm talking directly to you. For anyone that's part of the circles, when I said these things in the group meetings that we've been in, I've received emails from some people, from community leaders, who tell me point blank that they agree with me, but they'll agree with me privately, but they won't be part of a conversation that is divisive or contentious. Folks say that I'm not a team player. Well, folks, I don't want to be part of a team that's not doing the right thing. And if saying the right thing to the team is considered divisive, then let me be divisive. So what can you do? Well, if you agree with this, and please don't take my word for it, finding these things out for yourself takes time. Take the time to study it yourself. Find out if what I'm saying is true. Find out if I'm just slinging mud because I don't like the way someone else is doing it, or if there's a real mismanagement going on here. Find out if there's really a kid named Brighton Palomino that died at the executive end because somebody didn't provide oversight or accountability. Find out. And if you agree with what I'm saying, what you could do, well, there are several things. First, you can help Inside Out with what we're doing. We're trying to provide shelter right now to the people that are still on the streets. We've opened our center. We have cots and blankets and pillows. We have staff, very, very limited staff. We need more people. So what we need volunteers. We need people that are willing to come. Third shift is especially a big need, but actually 24 hours a day, we're open for people to come in and get warmth and get food, shelter, and things that they need. So if you can be part of that, maybe you've got some blankets or pillows to donate, or maybe you've got a few hours, one day a week that you could come and be part of that. Maybe you want to cook some meals or something. There's a website there, help.iouth.org. There's a form there that you can just provide us with your contact information, and someone will be in contact with you. Another thing you could do if you want to help is provide a financial contribution. A number of people have come forward with financial help. The easiest way to do that would probably be to use the donate button on our Facebook page. You can certainly write a check and send it to our ministry at 501 South Wittenberg Avenue. If you do, please put homeless program on the reference line so we'll know how to allocate the funds. But the easiest way is probably just use the donate button there on our Facebook page. Facebook doesn't charge any credit card processing fees to the or such to the nonprofit organizations that utilize that button. So it's a win for everyone. If you are upset over the way that the local funds are being allocated, especially the way they're being allocated compared to what they're doing in other cities, call the city manager. Call the city manager and let him know that you are outraged at this one-size-fits-all method of addressing homelessness in Springfield, Ohio. Call the mayor. Let them know that we certainly want to help the homeless population and we think they should be helped, but they can't be helped with one size fits all. Let them know. Call your city commissioners, each and every one of them, and let them know that you don't approve of children, families with children being put in hotel rooms without some type of real, genuine accountability and oversight to make absolutely certain that those kids are not being left there unattended, that they're not being neglected, and they're not being exposed to things that children shouldn't be exposed to. You know, if a family goes into a homeless shelter, then there's oversight. They have to stay with their kids. They can't just leave the kids there. There should be at least the same oversight if we're going to take these folks and we're going to spend millions of dollars in government funds to put them up in hotels. We need to know what's going on. We need to know that they're really utilizing the hotels for the things that we're providing them for. There's nothing wrong with that. I've been called judgmental. I've been called a troublemaker. And it's said that I'm not a team player because I bring these things up. But folks, I think if Ryden Palomino was alive today and could speak, he would wish that somebody made a little trouble on his account. I think some of his kids that slept in the hallway at the Red Roof Inn would have been happier if somebody made a little trouble on their account. Or politely make some phone calls, send some emails, let your voice be heard, and hopefully we can do some better things here in Springfield. Well, thanks for taking the time to listen. And by the way, the people whose actions I'm criticizing, I do want to recognize that I think they mean well. I believe they mean well. I don't believe that they are intentionally doing something wrong or that they're intentionally leaving children neglected. They're just ill-informed and they're not willing to hear alternatives. And that's the only criticism I have, is that they've decided on a one-size-fits-all solution, and because that solution is convenient, they're simply not willing to hear any other solutions. ignorance is bliss, I suppose. So that's my only criticism of those folks. I'm not saying they're bad people or that they don't care. I know that they care. I know they weep over the people sleeping in the cold just like we do.